My name's Lindsay and I'm an addict.
Hi, Lindsay.
Can you hear me at the back? Great. Okay, fantastic. I am just so happy to be here. Just so unbelievably happy to be here. This is... my mother comes from Aberdeen. Aberdeen! So I can understand everything you're all saying. It's great because my husband and my sponsor can't hardly understand anything. So a little bit of interpreting going on. So I'm an addict. I'm half Scottish and I'm half American. And that's, I always thought that might be my problem, from one extreme to the other. I'm a Virgo, so I thought, thank you. Yeah, Virgo's in the house. And so I thought, maybe my perfectionism might come from that. I was always trying to figure out why I was the way I was, and I was very much a kind of thinking person. When I was a kid, I used to run up the stairs to my bedroom and then go, what the fuck am I here for? And my mother would always say to me, retrace your steps, which is kind of interesting because that's kind of what we do here. So I'd have to go back down the stairs and kind of go, what was I going up the stairs for? What was I going up the stairs for? What was I going up the stairs for? And it's because of my thinking. I have this obsessive thinking. It's been difficult to diagnose because I could think it's everything but what it is. And it's been... Yeah, thank God I found Narcotics Anonymous. I'd been seen by a lot of mental health institutions. I'd been diagnosed with schizophrenia, sort of coming down off whatever. I'd been kind of diagnosed with, what else was it? I was sociopath. That was a good one. I'm still not sure about that. That might be true. I work this program so well now, I can just deal with everything, man. No, just kidding. I'm so pleased to be here. I came here about 18 months ago. My mother had died, and I came here with her ashes. And I, on a very, very windy day, I think it must have been the 2nd of January, so you can imagine what that was like. It was kind of quite gaily, a little bit windy, and went down to the shore. And, my mother was one of those Aberdeen people that used to swim in the sea. I don't know if anybody else here does that today, but she used to do that. And... So it was the appropriate place. Bring her back to Scotland, and put her back in the sea. And yeah, it was such a great thing to do. And what was really nice was that, isn't it great that NA is fucking everywhere? It is just everywhere. So I was able to drop into some meetings with my husband. Hooked up with some people that I'd already met down south, and it's like coming to a place where you can go, my name's Lindsay, I'm an addict, and this is what's going on for me, and this is how I'm dealing with it. Because when I very first got here, it just used to be, this is what's going on for me. Now it's kind of, this is what's going on for me, and this is what I can do about it. I still have the disease of addiction. I didn't really know I had a disease of addiction for about a year, being clean for a year. Because I had obsessive thinking, I didn't know I had obsessive thinking because I couldn't see it. I just couldn't see it. It's like, so when people were saying, oh yeah, you've got the disease of addiction, it's like, yeah, that's a really cool one just to kind of like say. It's like an excuse. It's like, I can say I'm an addict, and it's like a pass, and But then slowly, I started to realise actually I do have different thinking from a lot of people. You know, normal, whatever the fuck that is. You know, my thinking latches on to something and then it won't let go. And it just goes over and over and over and over. So like when I was using, the using exacerbated it. It actually helped it for an awfully long time, because I don't ever remember my first drink, because we used to come up to Hogmanay every year here. So as you know, you can imagine, you kind of go, as the kids, you all just go around in a big group up the street drinking. So I don't really remember my first drink. I remember getting totally smashed and blacking out at 11. And then when I was sort of, I know, 14, I must have had I had my first joint. And what the drugs did for me was they kind of got me out of my head. You know that saying, I'm off my head, I'm out of my head? It's like that's literally what drugs did for me. It kind of did something for my thinking. It probably made it worse, but I didn't notice so much. And that was kind of, as I say, it's like having compulsive thinking. What used to happen to me was like, I used to kind of like, because I never stopped using from whenever I started. I don't even know, as I say, I couldn't pinpoint a day as to when this actually sort of started happening. But it was like ways and means to get more. It's kind of like, you know, I was a working addict. You know, I went to work, and by the time it got to 4 o'clock, you know, I left work at sort of any time between 5 and 6:30. But by the time it got to 4 o'clock, I wasn't thinking about the job I was doing. I was thinking, right, have I got drugs at home? Am I sorted? Oh, I'm not. Okay, dealer. I've got to ring a dealer. You know, and then one dealer wouldn't answer or would say, oh, I can't see you till 6:30. Well, that just wasn't quite soon enough. I would kind of like think of like somebody else that I could ring. You know, it's just that continual kind of like, you know, I've got to get this done, I've got to get this done, I've got to get this done, I've got to get this done. You know, and then scoring and using and then whew. But while I'm scoring, while I'm using, I'm not kind of like just I'm actually lining up the next use. You know, it's like smoking a joint, and in the middle of smoking a joint, rolling up another one. And I wasn't, you know, I'm still not very good at sharing, I have to say. But if I would go and score for you, my dealer was quite generous. I made sure that I would, before I got home, I would weigh it, and the little bit extra that you got, I would take off and put on mine. Then I would bring it back to you. Then we'd smoke yours, and then I'd go home. You know, that's kind of. Yeah, I'm still not very good at sharing, am I, darling? No. So anyway, you know, I will probably just hop around, and I'm not too worried about that. It's like, you know, for me, it's like I'm not here to be funny. I'm not here to be whatever. I'm not, you know, I'm just here to try to the best of my ability to be as honest as possible. And with that, hopefully, someone will go, oh yeah, me too. You know, maybe. I'm just up here kind of doing the best I can, really. So sort of scoring, getting high, and I kept kind of going through these loops of mental health loops, you know, of like ending up at psychiatric services, you know, cutting my wrists or whatever, in an absolute heap on the floor. Then they'd stick me on some psychotropic drugs or whatever. You know, I'd say to them something like, you know, can I still smoke a joint? And they go, no marijuana. And I go, well, what about alcohol? And they go, yeah, alcohol's fine. So I just get smashed all the time. So it's kind of, I kind of went round in this loop of kind of like, I think it was roughly a 5-year loop of kind of like being okay, going round, and then smashing myself to bits. Being okay, going round, then smashing myself to bits. You know, I've tried to sort of commit suicide, not very seriously, several times. Just really didn't know how to run my life properly like other people could. And I eventually got to a point where I was 33 years old. My son was 10, coming on 11, and I was basically it was Christmas time, and I was basically turning around to him and saying, who would you like to go and live with if anything happened to me? And I was kind of prepping things for my exit strategy, because I just fucking couldn't do it anymore. You know, the drugs, even though they were actually helping me in a lot of ways, were also killing me. You know, I'd had collapsed lungs, I'd had, fallen off my bicycle and fractured my hip. You know, I'd kind of, I had died, with the collapsed lung, it's like I almost died. You know, and yet with my drain in the hospital, you know, I'd wander outside and have a spliff. You know, what the fuck's that about? Mental. So I couldn't stop using. I didn't even know I had to stop using. I just thought I had a life problem. And when I was having one of my sort of rock bottoms, I used to watch telly in the middle of the night, and they used to put on these kind of drug movies, you know, Christiana F. and all that kind of stuff. And I remember at the end of one of them, at the end it said, you know, if you need any help, call this number. And it was actually Narcotics Anonymous, which I've never seen again since. I believe they do it in America still. But I wrote down the number, and I rang them, and the guy on the end of the phone said, he said, yeah, come to me. And he said, I use cocaine, he said. And he went on and on about his cocaine use. And because I was somebody who hadn't used cocaine yet, I persuaded myself that I didn't have a problem. I wasn't like him. I didn't need to go to a meeting. But I had the number in, I've still kept them because I want to be reminded of how fucking insane I was. I used to write little poems and kind of like, oh, woe is me, and, you know, the universe, and, you know, I'm just the worst person ever, and da-da-da-da, and like all these, you know, quite poetic and really just dark. And so that the Narcotics Anonymous phone number was in there. And for some reason, you know how it all just fucking comes together? The universe just conspired with me. And I found the Narcotics Anonymous number again, going through some stuff. And where I was at this rock bottom preparing to kill myself, and literally I remember kind of like screaming up at the sky. I wasn't one of these screamers that said, you know, God help me. I was one of these screamers that said, God, what the fuck have you put me on this planet for? I'm such a waste of space. Why was I even fucking born? This is just horrible. It's miserable. It's horrible. Why would you do that? Right? So, a bit of self-pity there. And, and somehow I found this. I wasn't searching for it. Somehow I found this Narcotics Anonymous number again. And I rang up the helpline and I talked to this girl. And all she said to me was, if you think you've got a problem, then maybe you should come to a meeting. It wasn't you must do this or you must do that. It was a maybe. And she went against all the rules, and she gave me her number, and she met up with me at a women's meeting. And I remember creeping into this women's meeting. I remember one of the women saying to me, actually, oh yes, I hadn't washed my hair for years either, and blown dried it. And it was this really snobby fucking meeting in Notting Hill. And there I am, like my hair a complete, you know, mess, you know, stank of cigarettes, my fucking coat that's got fucking burns in it all over the place. Did you ever have to get rid of all those clothes? Fuck. And stuff, carpets, everything. Oh my God. So went to this meeting, and I wasn't given this one because, yeah, I was I was very unmanageable coming here. I forgot to bring my basic text, but this basic text here is basically, I was given one of these, and a lot of the women wrote their phone number down and they gave it to me. And this is called our basic text. And I took it home and I read 2/3 of it, because don't forget, I'm obsessive and I want the solution. And I want it right now, you know, fix me. And all I read was, I got the kind of hint of it. It was kind of something about helping other people. And I was like, but I'm the one that needs help. You know, I really was a little bit like, ugh. Anyway, so I didn't go to another meeting. This girl rings me a couple of days later. She says, have you been to another meeting yet? I went, no. I said, I'm all right now. So she said to me, I'll tell you what, she said, come to this Saturday meeting and I'll meet you there. So she met me at the Saturday meeting, and I honestly haven't looked back. I have not looked back. My clean date is the 8th of January 2002. Thank you. And I went into the prison a couple of days ago. We went into HMP Grampian. And isn't prison scary? Nobody thinks prison's scary. Fucking hell. Wow, you lot. Blimey. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. But I've got a very good mask, you know, quite good at masking. So we went into there the other night, and you know, the men went off in one direction. We didn't have a meeting because apparently there hasn't been a meeting there for some time, or never been, or something like that. I don't know the exact stuff about it. And one of the women said to me, she said, how clean are you? And I said, 16 years. And she said, how did you do that? And all I said to her was, a day at a time. Because that's all I've got is today. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next year, but today. I said, and I explained to her as well that, like, you know, I don't always feel like staying clean. Sometimes I really, really want to pick up, but not obsessively, by the way. That obsession to use has been removed. But occasionally I'll kind of think, yeah, that's the solution, because it always was the solution. I know some people don't get those thoughts, but I occasionally do have those thoughts. And I remember being 3 years clean. I told her about being 3 years clean, and really, really, like, I'd lost a business. I'd split up with this guy in the fellowship, and it was a fucking tragic. I mean, like, talk about doing it in public. You know, where I split up with this guy who was like really abusive, and ended up sort of stealing 37 grand from me. It was just fucking mental. And one of the options, of course, was using. And I didn't have a particularly strong program at that point either, by the way. I'm somebody that probably for the first few years, I just did service. I didn't know how to work the steps into my life, and what have you. And I said to this girl in the prison, I said, what I did was I rang up an old timer, and I said, I really, really fucking want a drink. I really want a drink. And she said to me, just get your head on the pillow tonight with another day clean. And that's what I did. And I managed to get through that whole fucking nightmare. And I swore off men, by the way. I completely swore off them. I was like, never again. I went, God, never again. I am not ever going to have a relationship with anybody like that again. I said I'd rather be on my own and unhappy than be in a relationship like that and unhappy. And weirdly enough, 6 months later, my now husband walked into my life. So it's great. You kind of hit rock bottom. I've hit rock bottom in so many areas of my life, and as soon as I hit bottom, fucking hell, God just helps me out. Another example of that, just to say, was I didn't have a sponsor for 6 months when I was about 6 years clean. I was asking all these women, you know, one of them did a 12-step share and she 20 odd years clean. I went up to her and I'm like, do you sponsor people? And she was like, no, I'm a counsellor. So, yeah, I mean, there was all that kind of stuff. It was kind of like, you know, will you sponsor me? No, I've got too many already. Well, how many's that? 2. It's like, okay, try not to judge you. Yeah, 6 months, and then I'm on my bed. It's just before the London Convention. Again, I have this little chat with God, because I just chat to God. I don't pray particularly. I just chat. I basically said, look, I said, there's these 2 women, right? I said, who would be okay. They'd be all right. And the London Convention was coming up, and I said, well, if at the London Convention I don't meet anybody, I'm going to ask probably both of them, because one of them will probably say no, but who knows. I'll do that. And I was absolutely on bottom about it. I was kind of like, really, in my heart, I was just like, I need a fucking sponsor. What's going on? And I went to my home group, which was on a Sunday, and there was a lady there who'd come over from California, and she was doing a share on step 8, and I was taking the meeting, and I heard her do this share on step 8, and afterwards, you know, because my expectation is this person's going to be here all week, aren't they? I said to her, would you like to go for a coffee during the week? And she's like, no, I'm going home tomorrow. And I was like, okay, will you be my sponsor? And she said, I'd be honoured to be your sponsor. And I've been with that lady now for 10 years. And she's shown me a new way of life. Like, absolutely. She's shown me how to work the programme into my daily living. It's been absolutely amazing. And you know what? I'd gone through the step working guide, and I'm an intellectual person, so intellectual shit is actually really not good for me, because I just obsess and debate and you know. And what happened was this lady showed me a very basic way to go through what is called our basic text. This is basic for me, who's a basic. Who needs a basic program in their life, because I actually didn't have a basic program in my life. I had a lot of kind of like, I knew what my defects were and I knew how they worked and but I had no clue as to how to actually work it into my daily living. So yeah, we kind of worked via first, I think it was Skype, and then sort of FaceTime came along, and, you know, we worked it out. And, you know, and I've been over there. I went over to California and did step 5 on Long Beach. I mean, how fucking awesome is that? What the fuck happened there? Yeah, I've just had an amazing time with this person. We went to Disney together. Who's jealous? Not all you Disney haters. Yeah, I just, you know, I've had an amazing time with this person. And you know what? It's like, you know, we've argued sometimes. Did you know that? It's like, I've actually had full-on, blown-out rows with my sponsor. But the blessing in all that, is that we get to work through it. And she's the first person that I've actually been able to work stuff through with, instead of just dumping you. Just going to dump you. I'm going to move on to the next person. And they're going to think I'm really cool, and we're going to get on for a while. And then you're going to do something to really piss me off. We're going to have a big row, and then I'm going to dump you. You know, I've learned how to work through things, how to kind of, yeah. It's been transformational, actually. So, getting back to, how long have we got, darling?
5 more minutes.
Okay, brilliant. I could say so much more as well, you know how it is. So, getting back to the prison, I was absolutely elated walking out of there. Elated. Because, you know, when you do service that's at that base level, it's like, it just does something to your spirit. It's like, it just really, it's just amazing. And even like when we walked in, there was one woman there. Is this breaking anonymity? Okay, well, there was one woman there. Someone can pull me up on it later if you want. Who she had been coming to NA, and when we walked in, she just turned around and said to all the other inmates, "This is this fucking NA lot, they don't help anyone, you know, people die, you know." And so we kind of had to kind of like push through, and I sat down, and I just started talking, and one of them was going, "Yeah, it's all about God, isn't it? It's God. I'm not coming to that. It's about God." And I'm like, you know what? It is really not about that. And actually, you know, God, this might be controversial, but God is probably the least important word in this program. We is probably the most important word of this program. You know, this is a we program. This is a help each other program. You know, God, if you've got a problem with the word God, which I did when I came in, I used to have to use the word higher power because I just wasn't comfortable with that word at all. It is just a fucking word. It's just a word. You know, it could be group of druggies, you know, good orderly direction. It's just a word. It's not anything to get fucking excited about. What would you rather, hear that word occasionally or go out and fucking die? You know, it's that kind of shit. So anyway, we're in the prison, we come out. But what's kind of sad is that we didn't go in there to do a share or anything. It was literally to plant a seed. It would be so cool if some women could pick up the baton and could start going in there, because those women really, really, really need us. And even though it was all kind of like pa at the beginning and really dissing us and all the rest of it, by the time we walked out, you know, a couple of them were going, "Thank you," you know, and yeah, and you never know. We may or may not have carried a message. There's one woman there who I now know that me and another lady we're gonna be writing to her. You know, it's kind of like, it's just dropping those seeds in, you know, and I you know, the reason prison scares me is because I've never been in prison, and I never feel like I'm bad enough to kind of go into prison. Because I can't, you know, if they kind of say to me, "Have you been in prison?" Because they do, don't they? It's like, no, I've not been where you've been. You know, because there's these blocks. And what drugs have you used? Yeah, you can't, unless you've injected in your eyeballs and your penis. You know, you can't have been a really bad user like me. You know, there's all that competitive kind of like bullshit that we know, you know, and but once you get through that, you know, those women really need us. You know, they really need us to kind of come in and, you know, not even necessarily carrying the message to me. I know that is our message at the back there, okay, but carrying the message to me is actually just that you know about Narcotics Anonymous, and that we're here, we exist, and you can come if you want to come. You know, I was in the lift the other day, and it was so fun. It's hilarious, actually. It was yesterday. And there was a guy in the lift, and he was saying to his mate, he was going, "Yeah, all that lot out there, like us." He said, "Yeah, it's all gay pride." And I was like, no, we're not gay pride. I said, we're narcotics, anonymous. Because I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of us and what we do and what have you. And I could say so much more, you know. If anything I've said helps, great. If there's anything that's kind of made you go, ugh, no, then that's fine too. I'm not going to say take it to your sponsor. Oops, I just did. Yeah, my message, keep coming back. Life is life. I've had so much shit happen, but a day at a time, I haven't picked up. A day at a time, I've used my program of recovery to the best of my ability. I'm not perfect. I'm grateful I'm not perfect anymore. God doesn't want me to be perfect. If God wanted me to be perfect, he'd have made me perfect. He made me perfectly imperfect. Yeah, I love this program. I love being clean. I love all the people here. I love being in Aberdeen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Paul, I love you so much. That guy is amazing, and he's the one that asked me to come and share. So any issues, please go and see him. Love you all. Thank you.